Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever felt like the traditional ways we measure human ability just don't quite capture the full picture? I mean, for decades, we've relied heavily on standard academic tests to tell us who's smart and who isn't. But human potential is so much richer and honestly far more complex than a simple test score could ever show.
Today, we're diving into 5 distinct acronyms: IQ, EQ, SQ, BQ, and NQ. But before we break down what each of those actually means, I want to pose a little mystery to you. Take a guess right now. Which one of these 5 intelligences do you think truly dictates your long-term happiness in life? Lock your answer in, because what the research says is probably going to surprise you.
Section 1. The 5 intelligences, our mental toolkit.
All right, to solve that little mystery, we first need to lay out the tools in our toolkit. We're looking at a huge variety of human capability here. So IQ is your academic and abstract problem-solving speed. EQ is your inner emotional control. SQ is your ability to read the social dynamics of a room. BQ is physical body wisdom. And finally, NQ is your network and connection intelligence. Now, to be totally upfront here, while IQ has over a century of research behind it, some of the others, like BKQ and NQ, are more like modern internet-coined terms and lack formal scientific testing. But we're exploring them today because they capture some truly profound, invaluable real-world brilliance that standard tests just miss.
Section 2. EQ and SQ explained. Managing self and others.
Let's kick things off with EQ, or emotional quotient, which was heavily popularized by behavioral psychologist Daniel Goleman. EQ is fundamentally all about recognizing and controlling your own inner feelings. You can think of it kind of like the technique used for taming the wild horse of your emotions. When your EQ is low, your mouth gets completely hijacked by anger, or a bad mood is instantly written all over your face for everyone to see. But high EQ, that gives you internal control. Actually, a super effective technique to instantly calm down is simply naming the emotion you're feeling. Just realizing, wait, I'm not angry, I'm just really anxious, shifts you from being a helpless victim of the emotion to simply observing it.
And this right here perfectly illustrates why EQ is essentially career insurance. Just imagine a really common micro scenario. A boss finds a typo in a subordinate's presentation. On a low EQ day, the boss acts purely on irritation and just yells. And the result? Well, the subordinate shrinks, becomes fearful, and starts hiding future mistakes until they eventually snowball into huge disasters. But on the high EQ day, the boss feels that exact same irritation but pauses. They take a breath, and they collaborate with the employee to fix the error. It is the exact same intelligence level and the exact same typo, but with entirely different outcomes. You see, career damage rarely comes from a lack of technical skill. It almost always comes from impulsive emotional accidents.
Next up, we have SQ, or social quotient. Proposed as a sort of sequel to EQ, SQ moves away from your internal feelings and focuses strictly on the external dynamics between people. It's your ability to read the room, sense the atmosphere, and maneuver relationships smoothly. Now here's a really fascinating twist. Did you know you can have high EQ but low SQ? It's totally true. Picture a meeting where a junior employee's idea is just harshly rejected by a veteran manager. If you have high EQ, you perfectly sense that awkwardness. You intuitively know the junior is hurt and the boss is annoyed. But without SQ, you just freeze up. You can't actually fix it. High SQ is what allows a person to gracefully interject with a clever face-saving comment. They might chime in and say, I think the core of that idea actually solves our main issue. What do you think, boss? It rescues the junior, it appeases the veteran, and it completely thaws out a frozen room, usually without the high SQ person ever seeking the spotlight for themselves.
Section 3. IQ versus BQ. Abstract versus physical.
All right, let's shift gears to the most famous metric of them all, IQ. Now, this is the only intelligence we're discussing today that has over 100 years of standardized testing backing it up. It is absolutely a powerful metric, but we really need to understand its limits. Research consistently shows that IQ predicts academic success, how fast you acquire complex skills, and your ability to solve abstract problems. However, it absolutely does not predict personal happiness, the quality of your relationships, or your moral character. To put that into perspective, IQ essentially just acts as a speed metric for solving problems. That's it. It is by no means a guarantee for a successful or happy life.
Which brings us to an intelligence entirely ignored by traditional schooling, BKQ, or Body Kinesthetic Quotient. Drawn on psychologist Howard Gardner's theories, this is the sheer physical genius of athletes, surgeons, chefs, and craftsmen. It's what we call tacit knowledge. If you ever ask a master craftsman how they do what they do, they might just shrug and say, it's a feeling. It's literally like trying to explain how to ride a bicycle using only words. You just can't do it. And sadly, because schools don't test for physical intuition, incredibly brilliant people with high BKQ often grow up falsely believing they aren't smart, simply because their specific type of brilliance is impossible to capture on a piece of paper.
Section 4. NQ and Happiness, the Ultimate Key.
Okay, it is time to finally answer our opening mystery. Out of all these incredible human abilities, which one truly drives human happiness? Well, the answer lies in NQ, or network quotient. Stemming from concepts around a coexistence index, NQ is your unmeasurable ability to build connections, gather allies, and harmoniously coexist with the people around you. It completely dictates your support system. When you hit a rough patch, NQ is the difference between having 0 lifelines and having a dozen people you can call at 2 a.m. It brings you career opportunities through loose ties, and it determines whether you still have a warm community to belong to long after you retire and those shiny professional titles vanish.
Now you might be wondering, why are we so absolutely sure this is the key to happiness? It all comes down to the number 80. The famous Harvard Adult Development Study tracked a group of men for over 80 years. We're talking about one of the longest-running studies in human history. Researchers literally watched these men go off to war, build careers, marry, succeed, fail, and eventually grow old, all to figure out the exact formula for a happy and healthy life.
And what was their ultimate conclusion? The researchers stated, repeatedly and definitively, that it wasn't fame, it wasn't money, and it certainly wasn't IQ that predicted happiness. It was the quality of their relationships. This proves that NQ, this beautifully untestable, unmeasurable ability to connect with others, is the true definitive key to a joyful life. Your connections literally carry both your future opportunities and your overall happiness.
Section 5. The 5 Flashlights. Applying the Metrics.
So, what does this all mean for us? How do we practically apply this really empowering new perspective? Well, first, we have to understand that these intelligences are not just simple addition. They work more like a multiplication equation. You definitely don't need to be perfect in every single one, but relying solely on one while completely ignoring the others, that is a recipe for disaster. For instance, high IQ multiplied by 0 EQ equals a workplace disaster. Your high intelligence just becomes a weapon in a meeting if you lack the emotional control to wield it kindly. Conversely, you absolutely do not need a genius-level IQ if you have a solid balanced multiplier across your EQ, SQ, and NQ.
And this brings us to the ultimate twist of the explainer. In the real world, we operate on a measurability hierarchy. Schools and workplaces heavily prioritize IQ simply because it is the absolute easiest thing to measure with a standardized test. BKQ and NQ, they're mostly ignored because you can't easily slap them on a report card. But if you rank these exact same traits by their actual impact on human happiness, based on decades of research, the hierarchy is completely reversed. Think about that. What is easiest to measure is almost never what is most important for a fulfilling life.
I want to leave you with this really powerful metaphor today. Think of these 5 intelligences not as tests you have to pass, but as 5 different flashlights you can use to look through the windows of human potential. If you look at someone, whether that's a child, an employee, or even yourself, and you only measure them by their academic IQ, you might just be staring at a dark window. But here's the secret. Nobody has all 5 windows completely dark. Are they a physical genius? Are they incredible at bringing people together and making them feel seen? We need to stop using a single, broken academic ruler to judge human worth. Instead, use these 5 flashlights to discover the unique, glowing brilliance hiding within everyone. So I'll leave you with this. Which of your windows is lit up the brightest? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.